Before she brings something up, she thinks about how she's going to say it. She waits for what feels like the right time. And even after she does all that, he still has a nasty reaction. So the next time something even bothers her, she becomes even more careful. Eventually, she isn't only just trying to talk to him, she's trying to stop his reaction before it even happens. And that may be why walking on eggshells is so tiring. Because you're managing your own feelings while also trying to predict someone else's. One of our fellow evolvers recently sent in a question a lot of women will probably recognize within their relationships. And it's this: why does he keep reacting this way? How do I stop it? Because I feel like I'm walking on eggshells every single day. Sometimes we get so focused on trying to understand someone else's reaction that we don't even notice how much those reactions are changing us. Welcome to Let's Make Sense of It. If you're new here, I'm Tina, and this is the place where we slow down situations that leave us feeling confused. We look at what might be happening underneath and we try to make a little more sense of it. I don't claim to have all the answers, and I'm not here to diagnose anyone, but I can help you look at things from a few different angles so you can get some clarity and stop blaming yourself and finally figure out what moving forward actually looks like. This week's situation comes from a fellow evolver, and to protect her privacy, we're going to refer to her as Stella, and I won't share any personal details of her story. So we're going to focus on the pattern instead, because so many people know it. Feeling like you have to choose your words carefully, watch someone's mood, or even avoid certain conversations because you just don't know how they're going to react. So Stella wants to understand three things. 1, why does he keep reacting this way? 2, how does she make it stop? And 3, she wants to know what she can do because she's always feeling like she's walking on eggshells. Now, we're not trying to land on why he reacts the way that he does. What we're trying to do is provide some clarity for Stella. So let's just slow some things down. Let's start with what walking on eggshells can actually look like, because it isn't always obvious. Sometimes it's checking someone's mood before you even decide to bring anything up. Or you walk into a room and you can tell exactly by the look on their face if 1, they're irritated, 2, they're in a bad mood, 3, maybe this can wait. And sometimes it's rehearsing a conversation in your head beforehand. You start with reassurance before you even tell them how you feel. You say things like, I'm not trying to start a fight, or I'm not saying you're a bad person. Please don't take what I'm about to say wrong. And other times it means deciding that it's just easier to say nothing. So you just let it go. You tell yourself it's just not worth it. But the problem with that is your feelings don't just disappear because you didn't bring them up. They stay with you. And little by little, the relationship starts to feel less like a place where you can be honest and more like a place where you have to be careful. And after a while, you get really good at careful. You notice the smallest shift in someone's voice. You can tell what kind of mood they're in just by how they close the door. And then your mind starts working. Should I ask them what's wrong? Or will asking make things worse? This is where it just stops being about choosing your words wisely. You start organizing your entire self around how somebody else is going to react. what you say, when you say it, how much of it you say. And if you get through a day without an argument, you feel relieved. But relief and peace aren't the same thing. Peace is feeling safe enough to be yourself. And relief is thinking, oh, thank God nothing happened today. And when you live like that for long enough, relief starts to feel like the best you can even hope for. You start measuring the good days, whether the other person was upset with you or not. Not by how you felt, just by whether you avoided their reaction. And that changes how you see yourself. You start to believe that you're difficult for even having feelings. You tell yourself that you're too sensitive before anyone even says it. And that's the hard part. Eventually, the other person doesn't have to silence you because you silence yourself. But is it really peace if it only exists when you don't say how you feel? Let's explore what might be happening here. So why might her husband keep reacting this way? Honestly, we can't know for sure, and more than one thing might be going on. But can we look at a few possibilities together? For some people, hearing that they hurt you brings up feelings they don't know how to sit with. You say, what happened hurt my feelings. What they hear is, you're saying I'm a bad person? I'm failing you? I'm no good? So instead of staying with what you're trying to tell them, what you're trying to express, they react with what they think your feeling says about them. So they get defensive. They argue the details. They explain why you shouldn't feel that way. And suddenly, the conversation isn't about what hurt you. It's about proving that you weren't trying to attack them. And you only started out just trying to be heard. Now you're the one reassuring them, explaining yourself, maybe even apologizing for even bringing it up. Some people have never learned how to hear something you did hurt me without hearing there's something wrong with me. But understanding where the reaction comes from definitely does not make it okay. There's a difference between feeling defensive and making someone else pay for the fact that you feel defensive. Don't get me wrong, we all have moments where something touches a sore spot. But the real question here is what happens after? Can they come back to the conversation? Can they say, I didn't handle that right and I want to try again? Or does the same thing just keep happening while you're the one expecting to get more and more careful with how you approach them? Because one hard reaction is a moment. A reaction that keeps repeating is a pattern. And there could be another possibility worth naming here that I want to address too. Sometimes a reaction keeps happening, whether the person realizes it or not. It's working for them. Think about what happens after they get angry and shut down. Does the conversation end? Do you back off completely? Do you end up reassuring and comforting them? Do you even apologize for even bringing it up? Because if that keeps happening, they never have to sit with the discomfort in hearing how their behavior affected you, because their reaction changes the direction of the conversation. Over time, it can teach you that bringing up a concern comes at a cost. But I want to be careful here. I'm not saying every hard reaction is calculated. Someone isn't always necessarily thinking, if I react strongly enough, she'll just stop talking. Patterns can completely form without the other person even understanding why it's happening. But planned or not, the effect is still the same. If one person's reaction keeps ending the conversation, and the other person becomes afraid to speak honestly, that matters. Maybe this is even what they learned growing up. Maybe conflict in their house meant yelling or shutting down or pretending nothing even happened. Their past might explain why this is so hard for them. And at some point, they have to notice the pattern and choose something different. Because you can support someone who wants to communicate differently, but you can't do the learning for someone who won't admit there's even a problem. So let's notice what the pattern is doing to you. This is where I really want to bring it back to Stella, because she asked, why does he keep reacting this way? Maybe he does feel criticized. Maybe he struggles with hard emotions. Maybe it's what he learned growing up. Maybe his reactions lets him avoid the conversation he doesn't want to have anyways. And who knows, maybe it's a mix of all of that. But while Stella is busy trying to understand him, what is this pattern doing to her? Is she getting quieter, questioning her own feelings, apologizing just to end the tension? And she's spending more time thinking about his mood than her own. Because sometimes we spend so much energy asking why someone behaves a certain way that we stop asking what living with that behavior is actually doing to us. Sure, understanding him might give Stella a possible explanation. Noticing herself gives her something she can actually use. So if this sounds like you, who are you when you don't have to worry about someone else's reaction? Are you more open? Are you more playful? Do you speak your mind easily? And how far is that person from the version of you who's always trying to keep the peace? Because that gap really matters. So let's separate what's yours from what isn't. Stella also asked this, how do I stop it? And that makes complete sense, because when you care about someone, of course you wonder what you could do differently. But hiding inside that question is often another belief. You think, if I just find the right words, the right time, maybe I can control how he responds. But you know what? That's too much weight for one person to carry. Being thoughtful about how you communicate, choosing your timing, staying calm, taking responsibility when things get bad, that's yours. But their decisions to yell, to dismiss you, to turn the conversation completely around, that's on them. You can't communicate so perfectly that another person never feels uncomfortable. And you can't single-handedly fix a pattern that needs two people to change it. And I know that might be really hard to accept, because it means that there's no perfect sentence that solves this. But it also means that you can stop hunting for the flaw in every word you say. Their reaction tells you something about them. It doesn't prove that you've done anything wrong. So Stella, where do we go from here? Your next step might not be finding a better way to prevent his reaction. It might be getting clear about what you need when it happens. You might say something like, I want to talk about this, but not while I'm being yelled at. Or even, I need to be able to share my feelings without the conversation turning against me. A boundary isn't about forcing him to behave differently. It's about deciding what you will do when a certain behavior shows up again. And Stella, what happens after you set that boundary may tell you something more important. Does he make an effort to meet you differently? Does he come back to the conversation when things are calmer? Does he take responsibility for how his reaction affected you? Or does he become angry with you for having a boundary at all? And you don't need to have every answer today, but you can pay attention to what the pattern is showing you. And if his reactions ever include intimidation or threats, or leave you genuinely afraid, this may be bigger than a communication problem. Talking to someone you trust or getting support can help you think through what you need to do without carrying all of this alone. Because what happens after you set the boundary may tell you more than finding the exact reason for his reaction at all. So instead of only asking, how do I stop his reaction? Maybe you begin asking this instead. What do I need when someone keeps reacting in a way that makes it hard for me to speak honestly? And how much of myself have I set aside trying to prevent his reaction? Because you can understand why someone behaves a certain way without deciding that you have to keep accepting the effect it has on you. You're allowed to want a relationship where honesty doesn't come with a price, where you can talk about how you feel without having to prepare what's going to happen afterwards, and where a good day means more than making it through without upsetting someone. So Stella, thank you so much for trusting me with this. And if you saw yourself in her story, I hope you feel a little less alone. And if you have a situation you've been trying to make sense of, submit it through the form that's linked in my bio, or even email me at talk@evolvingwithtina.com. You can use your name, you can pick another name, or you can completely stay anonymous. It is totally up to you. If this episode helped in any way, please subscribe or send this to someone who might need to hear this. Now, the goal here isn't certainty. The goal is clarity. And I hope that made a little more sense. So until next time, my fellow evolvers, keep evolving, keep glowing, and never stop showing up for yourself, because you matter. Much love.